and it's the 20th of July. Summer is winding down. Doesn't feel like it. Um, it's been in the 90s quite a few days in a row. Probably will continue being in the 90s for quite a few days in a row. Um, my heart goes out to those in Europe who are suffering a brutal heat wave, as well as China, and right now in the Southwest, particularly. I believe there was a place in Arizona that hit 118 degrees. Um, just crazy temperatures. Um, I hear there is a congressional plan to plant bipartisan um, 4 million trees, 4 billion trees. Good, not enough, but it's a step in the right direction. And the fact that it's bipartisan is um, heartwarming. There's a new paint that should be available within a year that actually it's a white paint. It's whiter than white. It actually reflects heat um, back into space harmlessly um, and cools the ambient temperature by, I think, 8 degrees or so, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're 118 degrees, every little bit counts, you know? Um, and again, that should be available next year from what I heard on the news a couple days ago. I don't watch a lot of news. Um, a little bit, you know, I keep up with um, what's going on in the world. I keep up with politics because politics, um, like it or not, shapes our lives. Life in this day and age is political as much as I do my best to escape it. Um, and to an extent, I do. Uh, I am not partisan in any way. I try not to be, I should say, because I will listen to a person and not listen to the party. Sometimes it's the party coming out of a person's mouth. Um, so you have to listen closer. You have to listen with your heart and not just your ears and not just with your mind. And you have to listen, true listen, not just hear. Um, if I say I hear you, but I'm waiting for my time to reply, I'm not truly listening. I'm biding my time. I'm being clever. Rumi, Persian poet, says, sell your cleverness for bewilderment. And let's see if we can bring up that quote. It's a beautiful, beautiful line. Bewilderment is a wonderful way to live. Bewilderment. Let's just Google that up. I keep saying I need to take advantage of having my desktop at my fingertips as I make these videos. No longer do I have to. If I hadn't used it the other day, I would have continued saying Kierkegaard said, nothing human is alien to me. Uh, instead of, although he may have said it, instead of actually saying um, that it was Terence, the Greek, I think it was Greek, playwright. He might not have been Greek. Let's see. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. It's a beautiful line. I skipped out the buy part. Originally, I had said, sell your cleverness for bewilderment. Um, here's the entire quote. Not the entire, it's taken from one of his poems, so it's not the entirety of what he was saying, but you get the gist. Gist? You get the gist of it. Um, again, this is Rumi, the Persian poet. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment is intuition. That's how we listen. Don't, if we're waiting for our turn to reply, if we're not really putting our heart open and absorbing what somebody's saying, not the words, but the deeper intent behind the word. And we can only do that by truly being open, by giving up the urge to say something right back, giving up the urge for a reply, being responsive instead of being reactive. Imagine politics in this day and age if we were responsive versus being reactive. Where would we be? Imagine if politicians didn't want to be clever, didn't have the answers, but then said to us, let's find the answer together. What if they lived in bewilderment? I'm going to come back to that word probably quite a bit today. It just sums up so much of life, sums up so much of my life forever since I was a kid. Not always for the better as far as fitting in, which I've never done, obviously. I'm sitting here having a YouTube conversation with myself right now. How's that for fitting in? However, through the years, I've found that I'm okay with not fitting in. I actually fit in perfectly within my irregularness, even with my own awkwardness, even with my own bewilderment, because that's really how I lived my life, and more so now, but now consciously, that I get to step outside right before the sun's coming up, take a 20-minute, 30-minute walk, and be bewildered by the world. I get to see, I get to experience seeing in its true sense, seeing as in the absence of an observer and just the observe, in the sense of a seer, the Toltec sense, the same way that Meister Eckhart was saying, the eye in which I see God is the same eye in which God sees me. That is selling your cleverness, thinking that you know God, thinking that you understand God, putting a name on mystery. Or I think it might have been Terence McKenna, the great guru of all things, of all hallucinogens, of all plant-based power, saying, King of the Mushrooms, who said, what we try to do is F the ineffable. And that is true. Ineffable can't be named, although we say ineffable. That's bewilderment. So yeah, I will probably return to that. Maybe. Who knows? Conversations take funny turns. Takes funny turns when I'm talking by myself right now. Who knows where it's going to go? It doesn't have to go anywhere. It takes funny turns when my friends join me, and they might ask a question or make a statement or an observation, and then we all go off in that tangent together. But as they say, every stream, every river reaches the ocean, and that's what we are striving to recognize. Striving might not be the best word because we're already there. River doesn't have to strive to reach the ocean. The river is water approaching water. It is a stream that is reuniting with itself as the ocean. As Alan Watts said, that as a ocean, as a wave, as the ocean waves, that's what the ocean does. But the wave is never separate from the ocean. As a tree leaves, the universe peoples. We are the wave to the infinite ocean of the universe. That's bewilderment. Just realizing that. Walking outside at night and looking at the stars, and we are bewildered by what we are. Now, if you're to be clever, you would name the stars and you would name the constellations and you would point out the planets and you would say that there's no life in the universe outside of this. You would be clever. You would take everything you've ever learned from a book, everything that you think you know by observation, and you would be clever and you would make a statement. Who knows? You might be right. However, you could step outside and be bewildered by your own sense of who and what you are. The universe in awe of itself, as Walt Whitman might say. Um, is there a better way to live? Albert Einstein said there's two ways to live. Live your life as if nothing is a mystery, or live your life as if everything is a mystery. And we see where that got Albert Einstein. Secrets of the universe at his fingertips. That active power of imagination that led him to see himself racing with a light beam and coming up with the theory of relativity. That's bewilderment. That's what Rumi was saying. Sell your cleverness for bewilderment. I wonder how many more times I will say that through the course of this talk, however long it is. So I was thinking about reading from my blog. I haven't made it to my blog in several days. Well, I mean, I write in my blog, but in my live talks, I haven't gotten around to reading from it because I've had such great conversations with people popping up. And again, giving their observations and their insights and intuitions. So we'll see. Maybe I will read from my blog now, or maybe we'll just continue talking about bewilderment and Albert Einstein and Rumi. Secrets that only poets, mystics, and Albert Einstein, no doubt about it, was more than a scientist. He was a mystic. Stephen Hawking was more than a scientist. He was a mystic. A true scientist doesn't say he has the answers. What they learn to do, and this is a secret to self-inquiry, they ask better questions. I might have to write about that sometime. Asking better questions. The greatest question we could probably ask ourselves is, who am I? That was Ramana Maharishi's form of self-inquiry. My friend Gary Weber has written several great books on non-duality. Will have you ask, where am I? It's not a question that begs for a flippant answer. Obviously, we say, where am I? I'm at my desk. I'm in my office. I am here. Is that true? That's Brian Katie's self-inquiry. Asking something, is it true? Am I just, where is my office? In a house. Where is my house? In my city. Where is my city? It goes infinitely on. So there isn't an answer. Most certainly there isn't a flippant answer. That's being clever, giving that flippant answer, thinking we know the answer. Obviously, I'm right here. Where is here? Am I within my body? Am I my body? Who am I? Where am I? So the clever answer is, I'm Eric. No shit. The self-inquiry that we use often before primordial sound meditation, which is the meditation I teach, is, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I grateful for? And the thing is, none of these have an answer. They shouldn't have an answer. If you come up with an answer, then you're being clever. You're not being bewildered. Because when we say, who am I? We can just keep naming and naming and naming and discarding. That is the neti meditation and form of self-inquiry. Neti is the Sanskrit word for not this. So when we use that as a form of self-inquiry, we just keep dismissing the things that we believe we are, not this. Obviously, I am not just this body. If I was, what happens if I lose a finger? What happens if I lose a hand or an arm or a leg and so on? At what point do I cease? Does that mean we're all that we are is a brain? and a heart. But if a brain and a heart didn't have blood pumping through it, didn't have veins to connect them, didn't have a overriding consciousness to reside within, then they would be nothing. If we're a brain, then are we less ourselves if we're brain damaged? We could say we are less ourselves in a personality wise, but what about that sense of being? Is the beingness itself extinguished with brain damage? If I have a heart attack, if I have a heart transplant, that's being living in bewilderment, is just not having those answers and learning to be okay with not having an answer. Do you really need to have an answer about who am I when the ultimate answer is simply, and I didn't say anything because I can't. I did make a hand gesture. Yeah, obviously you couldn't see it. So who am I? And the answer is leaves nothing out at all. My favorite form of self-inquiry, as I mentioned quite often, is Douglas Harding's Headless Experiments, pointing to the observer, finding nothing. And yet, that nothingness is aware of itself as nothingness, and aware of its capabilities as capacity to hold everything. So who I am is absolutely nothing. What I am is absolutely everything. And there's no fine line distinguishing between the two. Experiments are definitely worth trying. It changes the experience, and I said that purposely so, instead of saying it changes your experience. It changes the experience of everything, because you're no longer simply an observer. You're a deep, deep participant in the fabric of reality, in the fabric of the universe. You are holding the stars within your capacity, and it's an intimate hold, as intimate as two lovers, as intimate as the breath against the lips, more so, because it's the same exact, very same exact thing. So I keep looking at my blog and thinking about reading it, and I keep putting it off, because I'm sort of enjoying seeing where this conversation goes, sticking with that theme of bewilderment, saying that word for the 972nd time, and an 18-minute and 11-second conversation. I wasn't actually keeping count, but I've probably said it a buttload of times. And it won't be the last, because again, it is the theme that we're working on. It's the quote from Rumi: to sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment is intuition. Mere opinion. How we cherish our mere opinion and offer it up as if it's the greatest thing in the world, the greatest thing in the universe, our opinion. And it means absolutely nothing, because it's only shaped on such a finite point of reality, of what we can see, taste, hear, touch, not even all of that. It's an opinion formed by absolutely no one and nothing. And it's held on to for dear life. We refuse to let it go. But when you see through the ego's demand to make their opinion mean more than it does, as it's mine, when you get to the point where there is no mine, George Harrison sang it well. I, me, mine. That was the voice of the ego. All through the day, all through the night. I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. That's the voice of the ego. That's the voice of opinion. That's what we're giving each other. Maybe it sounds like I am giving you my opinion here. Maybe I am. But also, I'm letting it go. I'm letting that opinion go Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. That's the voice of spirit, which is the only voice of intuition. When I say spirit, please don't think that I'm saying spirit in the terms of individual soul or individual that I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, and that type of that's more cleverness. That's more opinion. Because if you truly get to the point where you recognize you don't know anything, you can't claim to be spiritual because everything's spirit. You can just claim to be spirit. And you can't even fully claim that because you are as much form as you are spirit, and form is nothing more than nothingness itself. So we're back to what am I? Who am I? And the answer is always I don't know. That's the particularly Korean Zen. They ask you to cultivate the I don't know mind, which is both easy because I truly don't know and hard because I have lots of opinions. That's where we're stuck. Between the I don't know and the uh, head full of opinions that we have and we continuously offer, not just each other, we offer them to ourselves. We believe our own opinion. How baffling is that? Believing our own opinion. Um, and again, it's based on absolutely nothing. We, what do we experience? 1% of reality? 1% of reality is reality. However, there's in Kabbalah, they talk about the 1% of this world and the 99% of the infinite world. And our job is to, and every time we're kind, every time we meditate, every time we offer love, we bring a little more of the infinite world into this world. In non-duality, and in the end, Kabbalah and Judaism is non-dual, but it takes a while to get there. They would say there's no separation between the infinite world and the 99% world, other than the barrier of the ego, other than the barrier of our opinion, saying there is no infinite world, there's only this world, or there's nothing but an infinite world, and not this world. We're making. Hello, Duncan. How are you? We're talking Rumi, Persian poet. Well, I'm talking Rumi, the Persian poet, as I think he might be the um, first person popping in today. I'm doing pretty well. Um, good workout in this morning. I just finished my second set of yoga and my qigong wall squats. The all important mobility work that you in cool down that you've been talking about um, in your recent videos. I think a lot of people now know the importance of warming up and they get it done. But your cool down video, spot on and so clearly important. Very relaxed. Yoga and then the wall squat, and it does wonders for the spine. And in qigong, it opens up the dantians, which are the energy centers of the body, located in the low back, the mid back, and the upper back, as well as the neck. And the wall squats just open everything up and gets that energy flowing. But it's a very smooth and relaxed energy, like you were inferring. And of course, yoga has the same thing. Once invigorating as well as calming. And I will do my breath work in just a little bit, and then my second meditation session for the day. So I have quoted quite a few times the line from a Rumi poem today. And hey, Barefoot, how are you? And that's been the main theme of everything I've talked about so far for the last 25 minutes, rambling on to myself, I find that I'm no more of an attentive audience to myself than anyone else might be either. I have a tendency, even in my own conversations, to go, again, I'm making hand gestures that no one can see, uh, of going in all directions at once. But hopefully, in the end, it's all tied together. That's why I enjoy when we get together and we talk training, um, that it still comes back to um, bigger pictures. That I think we all realize that what training actually is. It's not just exercise. We're not just getting uh, our 10,000 steps in a day. Um, yep, and alignment, barefoot. Um, no, Duncan. Uh, Duncan asked if in my competitive days was my philosophical mindset different then. It wasn't. It was exact. I don't want to say exactly the same. It was extremely close to being the same. Um, it's only my sense of letting go has only deepened through the years, but it was present even then. Um, Now, I guess because I never had. Now, who knows? If I was a better athlete, maybe things would have been different. But um, I was a I was a poor power lifter. I was a good kettlebell lifter. Um, I was a middle of the pack ultra runner, um, and I'm a middle of the road burpee practitioner. Um, but I don't think it would have mattered. Maybe if I was uh, a better athlete, I would have let go of things earlier because I would have more to let go of, if that makes sense. Um, that's interesting, Beaufort. When I do those wall squats, I feel each vertebrae fall into alignment, um, and it's something that I don't get in any other. Uh, Maybe a little bit from doing downward dog, um, but most. I mean, I get tremendous benefits from yoga, uh, not just air quotes, not just spiritually, but physically as well, mobility as well, flexibility, strength. But those qigong wall squats, nothing sets my spine right, um, or does it as quickly as doing those squats, working closer and closer to the wall. Um, I am not totally up against it yet. Still on my best later in the day when as I progressively get looser. I practice them 3 to 4 times a day, anywhere from 3 to 6 reps, depending on how it's going. Um, Not thinking in terms of reps, but thinking in terms of the movement itself, how it feels. And if the next one feels better, I do another one after that until I feel that I've hit that point where this is as good as it's going to get. And anything I push further is just going to um, either take me backwards or not take me any further. Um, uh, Weight distribution for sure, because if I am just a tiny bit um, off, even by a breath, meaning that uh, I'm learning I need to hold my breath going down, be completely stable. If I exhale going down, then when I hit that bottom position, I'm gonna topple backwards, especially being that close to the wall. Limb length as well. I can see. I have a hard time visualizing how that works, but I can see the point. But definitely, as far as weight distribution, especially because I'm doing them with my feet. I start with my feet close together, but as I near the wall, they will end up maybe being an inch apart, which definitely changes the nature of a squat by far. When I do my sun salutation, And after the sun salutation, I do a deep yoga squat. My feet are absolutely close together. Um, Let me see Duncan's. Yeah, Duncan, that sums it up pretty nicely. Um, Although, not saying I wasn't looking for results, um, but the results were unable to be compared with anything other than my own sense of completion. That um, I didn't want to compare my results with yours. I didn't want to compare my results with someone in my age group. Um, I didn't even want to compare it to the last race. And it's the same with burpees. Yes, I'm looking for numbers, but I don't want to compare those numbers with so much with what I did before. I wanted to be able to let go to the point, and of course, saying I want to let go obviously means that you're not quite letting go, but we have to use words, and that's as close as I can get to how I feel. That um, there's a poem about the great mind, and it's offered in Chinese Zen, that once the mind makes distinctions, the uh, universe is split in half by that distinction. I'll have to look that up. And we'll talk about that sometime as well. And that's what it is with chasing those results. Uh, the result I was looking for in ultra running was um, ease of being. Not saying the race was easy, but that I um, fully accepted all the conditions that I was faced with on that day in that race. And the good thing about an ultra is they will offer you everything from heat exhaustion in the day to hypothermia in the night, um, to dehydration, to underfueled, to muscle strain, all in the course of one race. Um, pistols are pistols are tough for me. Um, I have done a pistol. I'm trying to think. Uh, Mainly the pistols that I've done have been with a kettlebell, which actually helps because it's a counterbalance. Um, so to do reps, I need to use a kettlebell. Um, in my best days and my most mobile days and stronger days, um, I could do one or two without. Um, you really should devote um, time to its practice, because a pistol can be an entire yoga practice in and of itself. I love those exercises that become their own practice, um, meaning that you have to devote as much time to form as you do strength, balance as you do um, anything else. Everything's a component. Um, yeah, not a great weight. I have been in the room with people who have done the 40 kilogram, doing a challenge where they do a pistol each leg with the 40, they press each leg with the 40, and then they do a pull up with the 40 strapped around their waist. Um, I have not done that challenge. I have pressed it a long time ago in my early kettlebell days. I followed Pavel's uh, Enter the Kettlebell routine, where the main goal, uh, he worked in ladders, so it was a high volume routine. And the main goal was pressing the heaviest kettlebell uh, that was close to half your body weight. Um, and for me, that was about the 40 kilogram, and that's what I worked up to. I did do a Turkish get up with the, um, I'm trying to think of what it was in kilograms. It was a 106-pound kettlebell. So what is that? A um, 45 kilogram, something like that. But again, yeah, back to pistols. I love this type of exercises that it becomes, that complete yoga system in and of itself. By devoting yourself to the practice, you not only get good at doing pistols, but you learn to set aside your ego for the sake of balance, for the sake of mobility, for the sake of performing one rep with the perfect form that you can bring um, to that. You think Turkish get up would be harder for you? I think with your strength and your mobility, that once you got that form down, um, you might surprise yourself. Get ups were one of my all-time favorite exercises, and through a large portion of my ultra running, um, the get ups and swings, which was again Pavel's, he called it his simple and sinister plan. That and pull-ups were the part of my strength training because everything was covered. I would do goblet squats as part of my warm-up, and then you do 10 reps total, 5 each side of get-ups, and then you do one-arm swings, 100 reps total, which would be 10 sets, 10 each side, swings and Turkish get-ups. And that actually kept me pretty strong for ultra running. It was a good program. I think about sometime doing a run through of that program, 6 weeks, and having like putting burpees to the side, not abandoning them, but a 6-week pure strength, simple and sinister routine, and then follow up with like 100 6 counts as cardio at the end of each, also to keep in practice, and then seeing where that would leave me strength-wise afterwards as far as doing burpees. So I would add in simple and sinister with the addition of pull-ups, probably not high volume, and then burpees. So by the time I'm done with it, it might still be sinister, but not quite so simple, as I've taken Pavel's purposeful, bare minimum plan, and I've added all kinds of crap that I probably don't need. That's why sometimes we all need a coach. Hey, Duncan, do you have any, are there any videos online of you playing? It was squash, right? Honestly, I'm not sure the difference between squash and racquetball. But it's a high speed, high impact game, that's for sure. The way some people play it, it's a full contact game. You do not want to be in the way of someone pursuing that ball, that's for sure. I lean a bit forward on my squats too, that I realize as I see myself on camera. Although not when I'm doing goblet squats. Body weight squats, yes. Goblet squats, my form is on point. But when I do body weight squats, my form, I guess the word I'm looking for is akimbo. Things are going in different directions. I agree, Barefoot. Many people, I probably even most, when you see in videos, have a tendency to lean forward. You might be better off, people might be better off doing lightweight goblet squats to keep the body a bit more upright. On a high rep squat work with my burpees, if I do squat chasers, my lower back is almost always sore. When I do burpees alone, squats after with a weight, hardly ever sore. Yeah, I guess that's true. That there wasn't much that you'd put online back in the day. Conversation, and I thought of it this morning, that I had with a uh, running, walking ultra friend. We would do long walks and long runs together, and he was of the opinion that virtually no one would be doing ultras today if it wasn't for social media. If they didn't get that instant ego gratification for posting on Facebook, I'm doing a 50K today, I'm doing a 50 miler today, or I ran a marathon in this amount today. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's an interesting point that he made. We do have a tendency to put things out on social media in a way that, of course, we didn't have social media then, but it has changed the nature of what some of us have done and do. Who knows? I certainly enjoy being on social media. I enjoy the friends that I've made. I enjoy putting my stuff on YouTube, but I did a year's worth of burpees before I ever put a video up. It's fun to share, fun to have these conversations, but it's not the end all be all, that's for sure. Well, I guess I need to double check this with Duncan. What's the training protocol for squash? A couple of days ago when we were talking about Born to Run, and I mentioned that the Raramuri play this kickball game over a vast distance, and the purpose isn't just to become good at kickball or to become good at running, but it is to become an athlete before they become runners. And a lot of running coaches have tried to build that up instead of specializing at first. So although you have to be a good squash player, you need to specialize in squash. What is the training protocol as far as getting good in squash? That's what I would be interested in seeing. Sorry, I'm reading through the comments here. Definitely see the skill, but it's a pretty constant game, isn't it? Or sport, I should say. And it's a high speed. So, you got to have that high level of fitness, and it's also pretty explosive, which my guess is, maybe you are always explosive, but I think maybe a large degree of the explosiveness that you display in your workouts come from your lifetime of being a competitive athlete, especially devoted to explosive sport. That's interesting, Barefoot, and it makes me wonder, what if we cross-train the motion itself by obviously not expecting to be as good of a tennis player if we switch hands, but would we even out some of those imbalances? Would we be a better overall player by spending time doing that? Almost like shadow boxing, it seems, and shadow wrestling, that you are on the court doing that. Did you do, was weight training part of your training for sport? My guess is you probably, did it and have done it throughout your life, but did you have a weight training program specific for squash? I like the way you sum that up, geared towards keeping some symmetry, but impossible to keep total symmetry, which makes sense. Funny because we do even the same in ultra running, is that if you favor one side, which some of us do, um, just a little bit, if you hold a um, water bottle in one hand specifically through the course of a 50K or a 50 miler, it leads to imbalances that you don't notice at first. You don't notice until you've been racing 10 years and you realize that there's something off with your body and you're paying the price for it now. Um, do you think you would have been a better squash player had you devoted more time to weight training? There's a fine line. Um, and Dan John talks about that often, like with football players. There's no reason, regardless of your position in football, that you should be squatting more than 400 pounds. At a certain point, it doesn't make you a better football player, and it leads to a greater chance of injury. Um, you're a football player, not a power lifter. But we get caught up in, every athlete gets caught up in wanting to get stronger overall instead of stronger for your sport. Carrying a phone in your pocket, perfect example. Um, I wear a GPS watch, and I developed I forget what it's called, where the blood forms a hard bump from that watch. Um, and it took me years to work through it, just putting light pressure and moving it around. Um, that similar to me in ultra running. I was 45 when I did my first ultra. Um, and in the course of 10 years, I did over 100, from 50K to 100 miles, 24-hour races. I agree, balance is better than absolute strength. That's one of the great things about Turkish get-ups, is you're working, you can't have absolute strength without having balance in a get-up. I think that is why it was a old-time strongman display. They didn't so much train the exercise as it was a display of strength. Pavel would call it an expression of strength. It's true that what Barefoot was saying, Duncan, is that at that point, you couldn't rely on the reflexes and instincts that you had as a younger player. You had to make up for it in intensity and all out drive, and bringing more to it. Then, what's the old saying? That talent is wasted on the young. For someone who's not getting coached, Barefoot, you're doing remarkably well. Um, I worked on the rings for a while. I did some of the GMB programs with the parallel bars, and I could never get close to doing the things that you're doing. Maybe if I had a hands-on coach and a spotter, I am nowhere near as fearless as you. Um, I would need to devote time to establishing a very meaningful relationship with the tree that I am hanging my rings on. I need to work up a certain level of trust with that tree, sitting under it day after day, and making sure that I was well loved before I put the rings on and even attempted to hang upside down. I'm glad you put soccer in parentheses for the American in the room. Although I think I probably would have figured out, only because of watching Ted Lasso for the past couple of seasons. Um, that's probably too. Uh, Tennis, golf, such specific sports. I taught meditation to a high school golf player. She is, I believe, she came second in state last year. She's went on to the nationals. She's got a college scholarship, um, but she was very out of sorts um, consciously, constantly in her head, and meditation practice helped her reach that level of letting go, surrendering to the moment. Golf is such a spiritual game, for lack of a better term. Um, it's a very Zen-like activity. How old was Tiger Woods when he started golf? Or the Venus sisters were, you know, not even in their teens when they. If you start in your teens for something like that, it's too late to ever get to be as good. Probably no matter how much talent you have to get as good as those guys got. The guy who won, I think he won Wimbledon this year, and I can't remember his name, um, has said the nature of his game has changed by doing breath work. And I've been meaning to look him up to see what kind of breath work he's doing. But I find that fascinating where you get to that level, and the main difference then becomes the little things you're doing that those others aren't. That's crazy. 2 years old, golf club in your hand. Uh, when I was two, yeah, and the repetition. It's same with being a pitcher in baseball. And the problem is, or quarterback, by the time you've hit so many reps to be that good, you are already well on your way of destroying the very thing that brought you there. Your elbow in any moment can go. Your shoulder at any moment can go. Um, that's why I think there's a lot to be said to becoming an overall athlete and then specializing. But of course, if you don't specialize, do you ever reach that level? It's definitely a paradox. Um, I'm trying to think. I'm not really familiar with snooker. Snooker's kind of like pool. Um, some people argue if driving a race car is a sport, uh, or even if golf is a sport. It's an activity. It's a competitive activity, but is it a sport? My thinking is yes, that it is. That's pretty remarkable, Duncan. You went out on a high note, that's for sure. Huh. I'm going to YouTube snooker uh, later tonight when I'm done, and um, definitely, definitely check it out. I know driving a race car. Like I said, some people say it's not a sport, but when you hit that intense level of concentration, it becomes full body. Anyone who's concentrating that hard is going to feel it throughout their body. I wouldn't want to drive a race car. Let me scratch that. If I drove a race car around the track, I would drive it the way I used to drive my 1983 Chevette. I would go just as fast, or I should say just as slow. Um, so yeah, I would drive a race car. I wouldn't race a race car. Um, I'm not a speed. I'm not a speed freak at all. Steadiness. If I have a superpower, it's being steady. Yeah, I've heard that people get actually suffer from heat exhaustion racing in a car. And then you think of something like some of those longer races. Um, I always forget that I think of NASCAR and I think of America. That actually Europe has a rich tradition of race car driving, possibly, probably richer than America, I believe. I'm definitely going to check that out. I have horrible hand-eye coordination, which um, made me a horrible baseball player, even not that good of a football player. Uh, and even my hand-foot coordination made me a bad soccer football player. Um, I got into boxing when I was young and martial arts and wrestling, and I did much better because um, you swing a punch. It doesn't have to be pinpoint. It didn't have to be pinpoint for me because, again, you know, it's a different level of what I was doing. A club boxer versus someone who's going to make their living doing that or is going to go on to that high level, even in the amateurs. I had no intention of doing that. It was just doing it for fun. Um, so I didn't care if I hit someone on the top of the head or I hit someone in the middle of the head or if I hit someone in the lower part of the face. As long as I hit them, I was perfectly fine. So hand-eye coordination wasn't that big of a deal for me. More so with wrestling. Um, Duncan, thanks for stopping by. Actually, I appreciate the training conversations with both you and Barefoot. And it's actually probably a good time for me to end. I'm approaching the hour mark. Um, I thought at first that this was going to be a 20-minute to 30-minute conversation. I was talking about Rumi. Um, I like the fact that this is broken up into two parts. Um, me talking about Rumi and bewilderment and all of that, and the conversation that we had, the three of us, um, training wise, sport wise. It's a good um, full full expression of all things possible to talk about, all the things that I love talking about in one conversation. So thanks for joining me, guys. Uh, Thanks again. You guys have a good night. I'll see everyone tomorrow. I'll be doing burpees in the morning and talking again in the afternoon. Thanks again, guys, for stopping in and joining the conversation.